So, Kayla, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Thank you. Had an amazing morning, went out for a good cycle and then a training session. And I have just broken my fast about 20 minutes ago. It's 12:20. I'm feeling good,
Oh,
feeling fed.
that, that's wonderful. I haven't gotten into my morning routine yet. It's about 7:30ish over on my time.
Okay. Okay. And how did you start your morning exactly?
So on a typical day, I'll walk you through a typical day. So the first thing I always do is I do some tongue scraping. It's an ancient practice, but great for the gut health. Your oral health. And then I do some swishing with coconut oil. So that's another Ayurvedic practice, but it's really good for killing bacteria, naturally whiten teeth. But those are always the first two things I do when I wake up. After that, I usually do a little meditation, some breath work, which is really incredible for the brain. And I know that we're going to get into that, but it's a great, I would even say, anti aging and longevity mechanism for the brain meditation. It's shown to lead to more gray matter. Then I always read two books, so it's just one page out of two books, but I have the Maxwell Daily Reader, which is kind of a leadership book, but it always just drops a really important piece of wisdom in my morning. And then I read the Daily Stoic. So that kind of gives you another side of the coin, but still all about your mindset. You and I really agree on the fact that I always say you have to set your mind before the world sets it for you. So I try to do as much, journaling and meditation and mindset books in the morning so that before I walk out and encounter my first issue or something great even happens, but I have determined how my day is going to go already in the morning. So I do that and then I couple a little red light therapy. So I will do my mindset stuff and then I go to the gym, come back, do a cold shower, and then when I get out, I do my red light therapy.
Wow, that's awesome. Love it. There's a couple of similarities there, which we both do. One thing I need to keep the practice on is the tongue scraping because I actually have a device to scrape my tongue, but I sometimes
Mm.
fail to do that in the morning. I must admit, I have to hold my hand up and say I don't always do that. And I think it would be a great idea because when I scrape it, I'm like, damn, where'd that come from? I brushed my teeth before
Right.
going to bed, you know?
Yeah, of course. But quite a bit of bacteria can accumulate through the night. So if you want to just kind of remove that first thing. I mean, number one, I think it's a great practice, but also, it's really great for your oral health, which is also connected to brain health, which we're really going to get into. But if you've ever kind of seen, I don't know if you've seen some of the pictures floating around the internet, but some nerves from the brain actually connect directly to the teeth. So it's been pretty widely known that your gum health can impact your cardiovascular health, but now we're receiving more data that it also impacts your brain health. So I'm a big fan of making sure that the coconut oil is done in the morning, the teeth scraping, and then I have some ozonated oils, and I also use an ozone machine to just swish around the ozone water in my mouth, which is really great for killing the bacteria.
Oh, amazing. I don't think we're all blessed to have an ozone machine, but thanks for sharing.
No, yeah,
um,
definitely. But there's some ozonated oils that we can link in the show notes. They're pretty cheap. They're a couple bucks, and you just apply it to the gums, and it works pretty much the same.
Awesome, awesome. I did know about the gum health or the how the teeth is directly connected to the brain. I've had a couple of functional medicine um, doctor dentists run through that, and I'm like, wow, this is some fascinating stuff. You know, there's a lot of truths which is not widespread enough for people to focus on their teeth and gum health. It's a real serious thing and not just directly connected to the brain, but I remember seeing an image where someone had a tooth extraction and it stopped lots of rashes which they had on their body. I was like, wow, that's from the mouth.
Hmm.
It's serious stuff. So, yeah, thank you so much again for your time. the topic today is about brain health, and I'm so interested in brain health. A little bit selfishly, as well as wanting others to know about it. I remember I'd done a DNA test, and I've got one copy of the ApoE4 gene, which is one copy of the Alzheimer's gene. So it's very important to me to focus on brain health so that that does not kick in and I get Alzheimer's prematurely. So yes, slight selfishness there. But I also know there's an extreme importance for people to just know anyway. I don't think people focus on it enough. I think a lot of people focus on just things which are more immediate, like aesthetic appearance. So the moment they realize they're putting on a bit of weight, they're like, okay, I need to deal with that. Or maybe until things are too late, where they've just lifestyle has been a bit crazy, and at the later start of their stage of their life, they start thinking, okay, I'm starting to forget stuff. Maybe I should focus on my brain. But so you are a certified brain health coach and biohacker who works at Amen Clinics. Congrats on that. I'm a big fan of Dr. Amen. Love his stuff, all the things that he shares. So you working there, that must mean you're a big deal. Congrats. How did you decide, I'm going to focus on the brain health? Like what started you on that journey? How did it all happen for you?
Sure. So it really started with being interested in kind of functional and holistic medicine. So I was a little bit of a sick kid growing up. I had ear infections all the time, which now I can look back and think, well, that was maybe potentially related to diet, things of this nature. But as a child, I never knew. So as soon as I hit about 17 years old, actually, I started having some health problems. I think it had to do a lot with stress. Well, I know it had a lot to do with stress. And when I went to Western medicine doctors, they wanted to just put me on a steroid cream. They wanted to kind of put a Band-Aid on the situation. And even at that age, I knew, something's wrong here. I want to get to the root cause of the issue. So I began studying nutrition, which is obviously a core pillar of brain health, but of course a core pillar of all health. Later, I ended up hiring kind of a small team of functional medicine doctors, and we really got to the root cause of what was going on. And we were able to optimize my health. And as my health became better, my brain, I noticed changes in my brain. And I'd also been on ADHD medication for probably at this point. I was put on very young as a child. Of course, my parents didn't know that might not be the best option for me. So I wanted to optimize, after I kind of tackled all of the immediate issues with my health, I wanted to optimize my brain health. And I didn't find a ton of resources except kind of Dr. Daniel Amen, whom I later went to go train under. But our brains are involved in everything that we do. It's backed by science that if you have a healthier brain, you'll become more successful, you'll be happier, and you'll just live a life that, is better quality than if you are kind of harming your brain and your brain health isn't there. So not only does it impact our decisions and our life and our overall quality of well-being now, it also affects our future. So I thought, what a more interesting, kind of organ to focus on than the brain, because also, when you're taking care of the brain, you're taking care of the body. So everything is really interconnected there.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I think a lot of people, they start their health journeys as practitioners in whatever field because of maybe some sort of deficiency that they went through themselves, a journey where they went through. It's not necessarily where they are picking subjects and they think, oh, this seems like a really good one to check out. It's normally where they might have suffered from something and they're thinking, do you know what? I believe the world needs to know this, maybe through their own experience. Myself, I got involved in fitness, and through sprinting, later moved on to bodybuilding, and started to look more into functional health side of things. And I guess through my journey, it wasn't necessarily a deficiency, but it's like I realized that there were so many things that people did not know. And I guess it kind of roots a bit more passion into my journey in teaching others. But I just love the idea that you've chosen brain health and how you understand it's connected to everything. It's so amazing, even down to headaches itself. I would say most people mask a headache with paracetamols, which doesn't help with the root cause. I've read that different parts of the head are associated with different symptoms or issues. Are there easy ways to know which part of the head are associated with what type of headache? Is that clear? Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. And headaches are definitely an interesting topic. I think, what is important to look at is neuroinflammation in this instance. So, if you have inflammation in the body, I'm not sure if you've ever had, your inflammation levels tested or CRP levels, but you're going to have inflammation in the brain. So that's a major cause of headaches. And how do we get inflammation in the brain? It can be a variety of things. It can be from eating, a bunch of processed oils like canola oil or soybean oil, or too much sugar, or, a lot of conventional produce that is filled with glyphosate, or you're not exercising enough. There's so many different things that lead to inflammation, but chronic low-grade inflammation is not only one of the major root causes of all disease, but it has a significant impact on the brain. So there are some different headache types, but it's really linked to inflammation or usually dehydration. So those are two big pieces. And if you have ongoing headaches, it could really be a variety of things. I don't want to say it could just be one thing, but it could also be, if you had any damage to the brain earlier in life, or it can be so many things. So I always encourage anyone, if you're going to have ongoing headaches, it's absolutely not normal. And we have to look at, is it some sort of deficiency in terms of vitamins, minerals? Is it the brain inflammation? Or did you have some sort of brain trauma at some point in your life that we need to get to the root cause of? So I would typically first, work on lifestyle. And if it continues to persist, the thing that I love so much about what Dr. Daniel Lehman has done in the industry is that we're looking at the brain now. So in psychiatric and medicine, in this way with the brain, usually you would just take a standard set of tests and then you would receive a diagnosis. For depression, anxiety, things like that, even migraines, you would just get a painkiller. But what he's doing is he's looking at the brain. So we can look at the SPECT scan and understand more about the blood flow and what's actually happening in the brain. So that's kind of, a later step to actually get to the SPECT scan. They can be very helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what about like not just medicating, but just figuring out some basics for yourself. Like, okay, I'm at home and I'm getting these headaches, but it's on a certain part of my head. So what's the difference between, let's say, the front or at the top or the back or the side? Well, what can they mean? Like as a quick kind of prognosis to, make some informed decisions.
Sure. Well, of course, if it's related to allergies, a lot of people have tension near the frontal lobe, which is the area which is also controlling a lot of executive function. So, of course, if it's allergy season or you're having tension headaches, so if it's very stress related, I think it's important to just be aware of how you're feeling, what your stress levels look like. I would say those are probably two of the main causes of a lot of headaches, either a tension or a stress headache or an allergy related headache in terms of when the seasons are changing. So if you're experiencing that, obviously, some meditation, and we'll get into all of the profound effects, but lowering the stress levels. But I would kind of focus, yes, if it's kind of in the front, it could be either a tension headache or related to allergies.
Right. Okay, that's cool to know. Thanks for that.
Sure.
um, so I understand. Oops, just hit my microphone. I understand that being active is good, and that would help with losing body fat. And resistance training helps with building muscle. But what about good habits we can do for a healthy brain? What can help to promote, like, I don't know, like muscle building for your brain? Like, what can we do?
Absolutely. So I think a major part and kind of the foundational work, I think we need to cover that, but sleep is absolutely crucial for brain health. So while you're sleeping, our body's glymphatic system is activated, and that's our body's waste clearance system for the brain specifically. So if you're not getting enough sleep or you're not getting great sleep, and I know you and I chatted about the Aura Ring, which is one way to kind of measure your sleep, but sleep is so foundational for the brain. That's when most of your memories are stored. Brain derived nootropic factor is released at its highest levels, so it does most of the repair at night. Um, and it's just incredibly important for the body and the brain. So that's one thing. The second thing I would say is really quality food, which I know that you talk about a lot, but our cells are literally made of what we're eating. And although our brain is only between 2 and 5% of our body weight, it uses 20 to 30% of the calories that we're intaking every day. So that might change, your choices moving forward. If you think, do I want my brain to be, made out of like ghee and healthy fats and avocado, or do you want it to be made out of, Doritos? Because that's the information that you're giving it. And I always say you cannot eat junk because you're going to feel like junk. If you eat junk, unfortunately, you're going to feel like junk because the gut is called the second brain. So the information, not only that we're putting into the cells in the brain, but also into the gut, is absolutely crucial. So there's a brain healthy diet that I kind of outline on my page, but the basics are always organic. Try not to choose conventional because the glyphosate can act like a neurotoxin. You want to have a lot of dark leafy greens in there. They're filled with vitamins and minerals that support the brain. And the brain is mostly fat and water. So you also want to have a lot of healthy fats. I recommend ghee, avocados, avocado oil. Walnuts are really great. They actually look like a little brain, so it's pretty easy to remember that one. And I like raw and sprouted nuts if possible because anytime that you're taking any food, it could be a vegetable, it could be a meat, it could be a seed, up to a really high temperature, if you're roasting them, then it can create something called advanced glycation products, which then can lead to inflammation in the body, which then we can link that to potentially inflammation in the brain. So we always want to eat a low glycemic and anti-inflammatory diet for the body. So we have the dark leafy greens, berries, organic, and wild blueberries are absolutely amazing, if you can get them. Otherwise, organic is good, but I eat them every day. They're definitely a brain superfood, so that's where I get my glucose from. Sometimes I'll cycle and do a little bit less sugar, but I love organic wild blueberries. They're amazing from the brain, loaded with antioxidants, which is a big piece of what we want to be able to feed the brain. Wild caught fish is another great one. So, wild caught salmon, sardines, they're really good for the brain as well. So, we want to get that DHA and the EPA to really keep the myelin sheets and the cells protected, the cells membranes. But the brain, like I said, is mostly fat and water. So, I like to lean toward healthy fats, but I know, if you're thinking about calories, that's totally fine too. But, you can just mark it down and figure out what works best. But all healthy fats are good. So, yeah, that's kind of the basis of a brain healthy diet. Also, dark chocolate. There are studies that back it significantly reduces your risk of depression just by eating. I eat 2 pieces of dark chocolate a day, and it has to be, at least 70% cow or higher. I try to do 80 or 90, but it's an amazing superfood for the brain. So, definitely what you're putting into the brain is essential, but exercise. I mean, you're obviously a huge supporter of exercise, and as am I. I get in the gym, 5 to 6 times a week, and every time I do, I mean, aesthetics is a great piece of it. Of course, you stay fit, but I also think I have to do this because I need to boost my brain. I need to boost my mood. So when you're exercising, Oxygen uptake to the brain is significantly improved. And that means, you're delivering more nutrients to the brain, you're having better waste clearance, and you're also, fueling the brain with just saturating it in oxygen. So exercise is a big one. Again, we have dopamine, we have neurotransmitters that are up regulated when we exercise. Serotonin, which is your happiness chemical. And most serotonin is also housed in the gut. So again, that's why it's so important for a healthy gut with the foods that you nourish it, bone broth, things like that. So exercise is just an absolute, I call it the fountain of youth. And I think that's for your body and your brain, because literally between the neurotransmitters that are released and boosted and the increased blood flow to the brain, it's really like the ultimate, I think, brain booster. So I recommend that people try to strength train 3 to 4 times a week. But you also want to get in low level movement throughout the day, like you do your cycling in the morning. I just try to make sure that I walk every 15 to 20 minutes. Even though 10,000 steps, I actually think it's a good starting metric. So I try to aim for between 10 to 15,000 steps a day, because the benefits of just walking are incredible. And if you can do it in nature and get the vitamin D into the eye, vitamin D is very important for the brain and for your ocular system. So if you can do that outside, you get even more of an added benefit. But that's really the foundational pieces of kind of how to protect your brain. And then, we can go into some things that you have to stay away from, because that's another part of brain health. You want to try to really reduce and eliminate all the toxins in your home. You want to, carpets, things like that can be off-gassing, all of the beauty chemicals and products. I really think it's important. And we were talking about AquaTrue before we kind of hopped on here. It's a great reverse osmosis water filter, but we want to limit the toxins as much as possible. Same thing goes with alcohol, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that. But
Mm,
really, it's about those foundational pieces of supporting a healthy brain mixed with, not doing things that harm the brain.
mm. Sorry, I was just drinking some essential amino acids there. My bad. But yeah, thank
That's
you.
okay.
That's really cool. You'd mentioned about carpet, and I was thinking, well, I don't have carpet in my house, but I was thinking, so I'm sure there's a few things that people might have a bit of issues with. And I'd like to know, okay, what can they do around these situations? So first one is carpet, as I just mentioned it. What if they have carpet in their house? Are you suggesting they should rip it all up and put down some floorboards or something? What should they do about it? Is there like an air purifier which would be good enough, or do they need to sanitize it a special way? What can they do?
Sure. Yes, I mean, hardwood floors are ideal, but I completely get it. So, having a really great air purifier is definitely a way to help with this. So, I like the Air Doctor. It has the HEPA and the carbon filters. And, you want to make sure that you get one large enough for your square footage, but also even vacuuming. When you vacuum, it can kind of activate, especially in newer carpet. The older the carpet gets, the less it can off gases. But every time you vacuum, you're kind of stirring it up. So I also try to, just remove shoes, things like that before coming in the house, so that if you do have to vacuum, you can do it a little bit less often.
Okay, cool. And a couple of other things you mentioned. Glyphosate. Um, I would say most people probably don't have organic produce or organic foods. So there's probably going to be a lot of glyphosate, which people consume, even inorganic, to be honest. So,
Mhm.
what can people do about this neurotoxin? Is there a way to offset some of the glyphosate which people are consuming? Or is it like you're doomed? What can people do?
No, yeah, you're not you're not doomed. I mean, a couple of things that, are kind of obvious, but you could start a garden if it's a possibility for you, make a relationship with a farmer or someone local. But when it comes to produce, there's something called the clean 15 and the dirty dozen. So if you have the option to at least shop the dirty dozen, you want to try to get those organics, but there's some other ones on the clean 15 that are okay to buy conventional. So if it's possible, I would recommend doing that, at least just kind of narrow down that list. And then really, really wash your fruits and vegetables and produce really well with a natural, non-toxic kind of vegetable wash. You can make one at home with some vinegar, or I think that they have a couple brands on the market that are, no toxin.
Right, right. Cool. Okay. And the glymphatic system kicks in when you get some high quality sleep. What about those who are working long hours and it is difficult for them to get quality sleep? Is there a way to get the glymphatic to work more on less hours, or a supplement a person can take to get it to kick in during the day or something? Like, is there a way of hacking that, or is it like only sleep can do it? There's the, if you don't get enough sleep, then again you're doomed. I just want to.
No, no, not doomed. Yeah, I think it's definitely important if you're not going to get enough sleep to at least try to prepare your body for better sleep. So that would be step one. If you're not getting great sleep because of work hours, try to still maximize what you have. Because I think a lot of people aren't setting their sleep environments up very well to begin with. So if you can, say you work the late shift, but you have a completely blackout room, like in my bedroom, I can't see my hand in front of my face. It's just blackout curtains. I have the little stickers on anything that might be lit up, and I completely remove the Wi-Fi. I think first of all, you're going to set yourself up for more success by doing some of these things. Some blue light blockers during the day, the red blue light blockers at night. Do you switch to the nighttime ones, or you just wear the blue one?
I've got the amber colored and I've got the red ones. So sometimes I just wear the red ones close to evening, maybe 6, 7 o'clock or something like that. I don't
That's
always
perfect.
use. Yeah,
That's what I did too.
yeah,
Yeah, so I think that would be step one is kind of making sure that you're doing, your absolute best with what you have. And then the second piece would be, there are, of course, other modalities like ozone that is great for detoxing. So if you want to kind of incorporate some of these things just to help a little bit, but the honest truth is there is no real biohack for not getting enough sleep.
right.
I think whatever way you have to, I would love to say, of course, you can do tons of different biohacking therapies and modalities to kind of get the blood flowing better, get more oxygen in the brain, improve just the daily waste clearance. But at the end of the day, actually, our mutual friend Sergey, he says that it's like going to a clinic every night. It's one of the most powerful things that we can do for our sleep. And whatever which way you have to get there are some biohacking devices like the new Calm that really can help you go to sleep faster, or you were talking about the brain tap where you're like out right away, so you still need to get that restorative time for the brain. But I would do kind of like whatever you have to do to make sure that your sleep quality can be prioritized, because you're going to be very grateful for that in the future.
Yeah, yeah. I've worked on some projects where I've had to wake up early and then go bed late. And by the time I get back home, I'm like, wow, even if I was to sleep from where I'm at right now and I'm not even near home, I still wouldn't have enough sleep. And so I've been through it, and I know that there are people out there that consistently live that sort of life. I am in a much better position now where I can get adequate amount of sleep. So I'm just, trying to look out for these people and see if there was any way. And yeah, it's quite interesting because if you can't hit the amount of hours, then it is definitely about making whatever hours you have as quality as possible. And I think the blue light blocking glasses do come in handy. And I think I mentioned to you on your podcast that I use a device called the Nano V. And when I checked my deep sleep on that, it was like super incredible after using that. Maybe red light therapy could be pretty good for increasing deep sleep. Do you think? Um, yeah.
Definitely. I think that red light, and I think, light in the morning. So if you are able to get outside, that helps to set your circadian rhythm for the day. So we are all kind of meant to wake and sleep at certain hours. But as we know, because of blue light and distractions and a different environment in our homes, we're definitely not getting sleepy as easy because the melatonin production is just not kicking in the way that it necessarily should. So I think the morning light in the eyes, and Dr. Huberman also talks a lot about this, but the morning light in the eyes is super important. So just getting out 5-10 minutes, getting some light in the eyes, on the skin, on the face. But if you can't do that, so a brand called Retimer that makes glasses that also imitate the morning vitamin D. They're actually blue light, which I know we all want to run away from that in this day and age. But the blue light helps you just in the morning. So I just throw on the glasses if I can't get outside to take a stroll, and that kind of mimics the same effect. But setting your circadian rhythm in the morning is going to drastically improve your sleep at night. And same thing with red light. It's a great modality for mitochondrial function, which over time, that of course is going to impact your sleep and overall performance. Great for skin, can be anti-inflammatory. So I love red light therapy for a lot of different reasons. But if you absolutely can't get to sleep, other things to consider are alcohol. People think that alcohol puts them to sleep, which in some cases it can help induce sleep. But then when you are getting into deep or REM, it'll wake you up later. I don't know how many people have ever had quite a few drinks and they wake up first thing in the morning, like energized and wired. It's because what it's doing to your blood sugar. So alcohol, although people think it helps you sleep, it actually really hinders and hurts your sleep during the evening hours. So you might fall asleep, but then if you had an Oura ring, like for instance, when I would have a cocktail, even one glass of wine, my HRV score would be cut in half. My deep sleep was significantly impacted. So I was going to bed for a longer time, but it was just all light sleep. So at the end of the day, that wasn't really helping my brain. Not to mention the fact that, unfortunately, I always lose friends when I say this, but alcohol is just really in no way a health food, and it does not support good brain health. It actually lowers blood flow to the brain. It, all around is a neurotoxin, unfortunately. So I think we've tried to find every which way under the sun we can make alcohol healthy. So like, oh, there's resveratrol in it, but the amount of wine that you would have to consume, like 5 gallons to get the amount of resveratrol that would actually be impactful. So 5 gallons of wine or just taking a resveratrol supplement. So I think that's important information. I know that drinking has gone up a lot and I can understand, but I think if people know that it's very harmful to the brain, at least the opportunity to change is out there.
Yeah, yeah. Are there certain alcohols which is worse than others for the brain? I mean, I think people are going to always drink. So
Yeah.
it, what would be the least impactful for the brain, would you say?
I would suggest a really clean wine. So there's a couple brands. I'm not sure if you can get it in the UK, but Dry Farm wines. Do you know this
I
one?
think so. Yeah, I've heard of that. I think there's a few guys that do order it here in UK. Mm.
Yeah. So anything natural or more biodynamic, because a lot of red wines, conventional red wines, like red dye is added, which is very harmful for the brain. They have all these additives. So if I were to choose a alcoholic beverage, I would choose an organic or biodynamic wine that's been third-party lab tested to make sure there's no bacteria. Just like coffee, you and I were talking about coffee. Coffee can be a great supporter of the brain, but if it's not clean, then you're consuming mycotoxins and mold and all these chemicals. So same thing with wine. I'm sure you guys have some great local organic wine shops too, but you just want to choose something with clean ingredients, just the grapes. And they actually have some low sugar wines now, which I find interesting. So that can at least help, your blood sugar at the same time. And it's also organic. So that would be my option is a glass or so of red wine.
Right, right. Yeah. From a clean source. Sweet, sweet.
Just like everything.
Huh?
I said that's what life consists of being an adult these days is trying to find all the toxins, right?
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Even if you're buying good foods, there's always well, seem to be good food, there's always something hidden there. If you're looking to get a lean cut meat, it's like, yeah, but is it grass fed? You know, it's man, like you can get lots of vegetables, but is it organic? You know,
Right.
and there's people who like bread, and you have some which say gluten free, but then you see all these other funky ingredients. Like, what is this? you know, um,
Right.
it's yeah, it's wild, wild. But talking of food, in terms of the brain, there's obviously that gut to brain connection. So I understand certain foods make me feel a certain way, um, while you got vegetables, which tends to make me feel really good, and I'm sure many others as well, which is probably a lot of prebiotic fibers in some of them. Um, but some beans can make a person feel gassy, even if it is organic. Um, Food is so complicated; it really is. But gut to brain connection. What can you tell us about that? Like, why is it important to understand how where the gut is connected to the brain? Yeah, could you explain the details in that? How they're both connected, and why it's important to know?
Sure. So, yes, the gut and the brain are directly connected, and the gut is often referred to as the second brain. So, the amount of bacteria in our gut, overtakes how many actual human cells that we have in our body. So, you really have to focus on what is the balance within the gut look like, and it definitely starts with food. So, you want to make sure that you're getting enough fiber to really help heal the gut. Things like glycine, glutamate, collagen are really great for the gut because the last thing that you really want is a leaky gut. So that would be one big piece of it is sorting out the health of your gut is figuring out the dysbiosis, how much good bacteria, how much bad bacteria. I think we both take a probiotic from Biooptimizers that has some pre and probiotics in there, a patented formula. So that's one thing that can, help gut health. But when you're thinking about how the gut houses so many of our neurotransmitters, most specifically, serotonin, over 90% of our serotonin is housed there. So that's our happiness chemical. So the gut directly influences your mood. If you want to have, a better mood, if you want to have better productivity, better focus, better energy, it's so dependent on the gut and what you're feeding your gut. So I think that prioritizing food, but also having an understanding of gut health. So if you have bloating like constantly and often after every meal, it's something to look at and say, okay, this isn't normal. This might be an indicator that my gut health is off, or depending on your bowel movements, things like that. You just should be very aware of how your gut's feeling because, again, it's super crucial, known as the second brain, and it's so important to prioritize your gut health.
Mm-mm. How often should a person have bowel movement?
It depends on how much you're eating, but 1 to 2 times a day if you're eating, 2 meals. And if you are eating more than 2 meals, up to 3 times is okay. But if you find yourself going to the restroom all the time or not going at all, that's something that, is a red flag and you should definitely look into.
Mm-mm. And like, how much should a person eat for optimal gut health? Would you say?
I'm a big fan of fasting. Actually gives your gut and your digestion a bit of a break. So, and I also think it's great for brain health. If you can start promoting autophagy on at least like a low level, maybe even getting into some more frequent bouts of autophagy, which is the cellular cleaning phase and recycling stage of the cells. Um, I think that's best. So I like to do, usually I eat within a 5 or 6 hour window. But it's completely dependent. As long as you're eating really high quality foods, it's okay to have 3 standard meals a day. But for me personally, I like to give the gut a little bit of a break and allow that, fasting time or intermittent feeding to kick in.
Right. Uh, For women, is it always safe for them to have that such a small window of eating? I've always questioned hormonal imbalances. Would you say it's okay up to a certain age, or yeah, because a lot of women are concerned with fasting because of hormones. What's your thoughts there? Would you need to consult your general practitioner or functional medicine doctor or something before you decide to fast? What would you say for a woman?
Absolutely. So many factors, yeah, so many factors go into it beforehand. So, what is the state of your hormones before you start fasting? Because fasting can work as a hormetic stressor or a stressor on the body still. So, it can sometimes raise cortisol, especially given the state that you initially go into the fasting. So, it really depends. Everyone is very genetically different. And me, I actually cycle. So I don't do that every single week. So I'll do that for 1 week and then I'll take a week off. Also, with women, of course, we have a phase that, a luteal phase, a cycle phase that men do not. So it's also important to pay attention to that and give your body more calories when you crave it. I'm always a big fan of that. So for some people, just having 8 hours off while they're sleeping is perfect. And for others, it's okay. And I think it's totally acceptable for women to fast, but just kind of feel how your body's feeling, and then also know what your hormones look like going into it, or if you end up getting a hormone test somewhere during that time. But I do think fasting is safe for women.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's good to know. So you say, like, listen to your body. If it says I'm hungry, basically you eat more. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Right, sweet. I was thinking to myself that there's going to be, let's say, women who are quite overweight and they're trying to lose body fat. Does that still apply for those? Would you say this is probably a bit more nutrition than actual gut health itself? You don't need to answer it like if it doesn't fit directly with gut health. But what would you possibly suggest there, even if a person is overweight and they should be maybe eating a bit less? Or do
Sure.
you?
I think it's always just important to start small, right? So, like there's also an app called Zero. You can have a pretty wide window for eating in the beginning and just set a goal for yourself as to how you want to improve or extend the fast over time. That would really be my main recommendation. But everyone's so
Mhm.
different. It really just depends. If you're absolutely starving and you're miserable and you're inducing all this stress on the body, then you have to weigh if it's worth it or if it's not, because of course we want optimal health, but we don't want to be absolutely miserable, on the journey there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What would you say is, well, okay, so I know that it's said that ketones is a very clean form of energy for the brain. And then there's also glucose, which is useful. What, in comparison, what would you say is most effective or the best form of energy for the brain? How should we construct our food so that our brain works more efficiently?
This is a great question. So, the brain typically runs off glucose, but it can operate very well on ketones. What I will say is, I think it's great for the brain to run off ketones or burning fat for fuel. For me, it leads to clearer thinking. In a lot of studies, this is also echoed. But I think it's important to cycle your kind of state of ketosis. So I think low carb across the board is very good. I did a little stint where I was eating a ton of rice when I was working and training under a bodybuilder, but I did not feel my best at all because the high carb load and then the glycemic spikes. So I think low glycemic and trying to maintain stable blood sugar is always going to be really beneficial for the brain, because you're also not going to have the brain fog and the crashes after you eat a high carbohydrate meal, and then the blood glucose roller coaster that you go on. So I definitely would say lower glycemic for the most part, and keeping the carbs lower, but then you can cycle in some what I call smart carbs or slow digesting carbs, something like a sweet potato, a whole food source of carbs, especially if you're also working towards aesthetic goals or something of that nature. You might need a little bit more energy. But I think for me, and the science also backs this, ketones are a great source of fuel for the brain to run off.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back to people who are slightly overweight. It's said that when people start to lose weight, especially if they're holding quite a bit of body fat, they tend to have this keto flu if they're doing low carbohydrates, because fat is breaking down a lot of the toxins. What would you suggest for them to have, let's say, an optimal working brain during this period? What would you say that there's a better way that they can do it, or they'd have to fight through this, I don't know, brain strain during this process?
Absolutely. So I think MCT oil is a great way to kind of get you into ketosis. It produces ketones right away, or you can take even some ketone esters. They taste a little bit like rocket fuel if you've ever had them, but
Yeah,
that can
yeah,
be
yeah.
a way to kind of get some,
Yeah, I use it all the time.
yeah, rocket fuel, right? Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, absolutely. So the taste I just do a quick capful, but that's a great way to boost ketone activity in the brain. And it might help. I also find them extremely helpful for any speaking engagements, even before the gym. It gives you a good boost of energy and mental clarity. But yes, the exogenous or the ketone esters are a great way. Of course, when you're doing kind of keto, it's so important too to focus on clean quality foods. There's, a dirty keto and a clean keto. So vegetables is like the carb source that I get when I'm doing keto. It's not a bunch of chips, like low carb chips or just all bacon, all pork rinds. I mean, balance is still important. So I think focusing on the quality of the food you're consuming while you're transitioning into keto, with some support from some MCT oil. You can even, if you really are having a lot of brain fog, you can take a nootropic. There's a brand that we can definitely discuss that I really like, but you want to have nootropics that actually promote neurogenesis or new cell growth in the brain. That's really important. So if you're really going through it with a keto flu, I would recommend those couple of items.
Awesome. Well, since we're kind of on the subject, what would you suggest are good nootropics? Let's just go straight into it. I mean, there's many out there, and I'm sure many don't work. What sort of ingredients should a person be looking for when they're going for a nootropic, and what brand or brands would you recommend?
Absolutely. So nootropics, they obviously work on neurotransmitters. So we have dopamine, which is it's references the motivation molecule. So that's a super popular transmitter to just kind of hammer. So you take a supplement and it goes right for the dopamine to boost it, which is great for that day. But then the next day, when your neurotransmitters always want to be in balance. So if you get, let's say, a hit or of dopamine, even from social media or your phone or something, it always wants to maintain balance and homeostasis. So it wants to even out. So then you're going to have a little bit of a dip. So if you're constantly taking a nootropic that's just hammering one neurotransmitter, and I won't name any specific brand names that do that, but you're going to feel fatigued and exhausted, and your brain's going to be tired over time. So I always recommend, and it's a brand that we both like. BioOptimizers recently came out with their line of nootropics called Nootopia. So what I love about it is, first of all, the delivery mechanisms are great because they range from powders to sprays. So it's really thinking the most effective absorption, which is really great. But what they do differently is that they actually support brain health. So they have a product called Brain Reset that actually, you were asking before, boosting the glymphatic system. So it's boosting the cellular cleaning of the brain. So they understand nootropics well enough to literally have brain reset days, which is important so that those neurotransmitters don't get overused. They also use super clean ingredients. They use healthy fats as some of their delivery mechanisms. So you're getting that for the brain, or MCT oil. So I think it's those nootropics are really cool because they're also custom. So everyone's different. If you think about it, it's just like supplementation. If you just grab something right off the shelf, it's most likely going to be beneficial if it's a high quality product. But if it's custom to you and your brain and your neurochemistry, because everyone's different, our brains are so different. So if we can get something that's custom, then it's even more beneficial. So in terms of nootropics, I think that's one of my favorite brands. I can't wait for you to try it and see what you think too.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. How often do you reckon a person should detox their brain, and what should they do to do that? What's the most optimal way? Because you mentioned about it doing a detox, but what if someone just wants to just detox their brain? Because let's say they may have eaten some fish, which is not, you know, wild caught and might have a bit of metals in it, and they're trying to clean up their brain and stuff. Just things which can get caught up in the brain. Like if a person's like, all right, I need to give it a wash. What can I do? What methods would you say are good?
Yeah, so we have something in the brain. It's called the blood-brain barrier, and it can actually become permeable, similar to leaky gut. So if you think about leaky gut, and maybe it's linked to gluten or something of that nature, but the junctions become a bit more permeable. So the blood-brain barrier protects the brain and keeps toxins out for the most part. But if your blood brain barrier has been compromised in any way, and things like alcohol, lack of sleep, things of that nature, it will allow some potential toxins or bacteria that aren't supposed to be there. But the brain does a really good job of kind of protecting itself if you give it the right inputs. But if it comes to actually wanting to detox the brain, unfortunately, there's no head cap that I know of that will just go right to the brain for detoxing. But anything that's good for the body detox, like a ozone sauna or a sauna session, will also be good for, let's say, quote unquote, detoxing the brain. But the great thing is that we have this blood-brain barrier that, as long as we keep it protected and keep it intact, cold therapy is a great way to do that as well. Cold therapy really helps to boost the health of the blood-brain barrier. Then the brain does a really good job of kind of keeping itself protected in terms of toxins, things coming in from the body that aren't supposed to be there.
Mm, okay, cool. What's your thoughts on lion's mane? And are there any other type of adaptogenic herbs that can work well with the brain?
Sure, I love lion's mane. It's great for potentially reducing neuroinflammation, which is a really cool benefit of it because we talked about why inflammation is bad for the brain. And it also promotes neurogenesis. So at one point in medicine, they thought we couldn't create any more neurons in the brain after a certain point in life, that we were just kind of stuck with what we had. But now we know that through many different ways, new learning is one of them, we can promote neurogenesis. And lion's mane is actually a supplement that can support and help neurogenesis. So I think it's great. It's also brings kind of a nice energy, a natural energy with no jitters and focus. Do you take lion's mane?
Yeah, I've got I don't even know what you call it. It's like a kind of almost like a serum which I put under the tongue. I can't remember what it's called.
Tincture.
It's by a company called X Brain. Yeah, it's like a serum where you just squeeze it underneath the tongue. It's supposed to be very potent. I'll
Mhm.
send you.
Is it a tincture? Does it taste like
Tincture, that's
alcohol a
it.
little bit?
Tincture, yeah.
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 Yeah, yeah. So that's a great extraction method. And I would definitely recommend that for lion's mane because, yeah, you can just put it under the tongue, hold for 30 seconds. But it's something that I cycle, but I like to, some weeks I use it every day and then I'll take a little break because I like to cycle my supplementation in general for the most part.
Mm,
But lion's mane is a great one. I also think ashwagandha in terms of adaptogenic herbs. Again, you want to be really careful about the quality because some of these herbs can have heavy metals in them if they're not from a high quality source. But I think ashwagandha is a good one for your cortisol levels and for your nervous system because our nervous system and our brain, are directly related. It's like the messaging system. So nourishing our nervous system is also super important. So with that, I would say magnesium is a really great supplement. And biooptimizers, again, they have the magnesium breakthrough that has 7 types of magnesium in it. So you could be taking magnesium, but just taking, glycinate or something, and then you're missing out on all the other forms. And the most available form of magnesium in the brain is actually L-threonate. So it can most easily pass the blood-brain barrier. So magnesium is a really good option. And as we know, most people are deficient in magnesium. The next one I would say, and fish oil is getting such a bad rap on the internet right now. Have you seen any of this? People are
um,
just saying fish oil is no good.
no, not really. No, no. I guess I
Okay,
haven't really been
good.
reading anything on it. I mean, I just know in general when I used to have fish oil, the EPA and DHA was super low. It was something stupid like maybe 110 each. I was like, wow, for 1,000 milligram capsule, which is pretty crap. But no, like, what have
Yeah.
you been reading?
Oh yeah. So fish oil is actually really great for the brain. So it has DHA and EPA in it. Especially if you're not going to eat enough fish, like wild caught salmon a couple times a week or whatnot. But yeah, I just feel like it's one of these kind of social media phenomenons where all of a sudden now everyone is against fish oil. But the thing about fish oil is if it gets oxidized, but vitamin D can also get oxidized and then be not great for your health. It's just like any oil, you have to keep it very stable. So it's important to buy it from, a quality source and then keep it cool throughout the journey. And then I keep mine in my refrigerator. But EPA and fish oil, I like a cod oil is really good for the brain. Definitely.
Mm. Okay. The one I use is by Keon. Do you know Keon?
Yeah, Ben Greenfield's company.
Yeah, that's right. And
I take
Angelo Keeley is like the co-founder. What brand do you use? Finish your swig of your water.
Oh, I was actually going to show you. So I used to use Nordic Naturals, and I'll have to send you the name of my new one because now it's just a liquid. I don't do it in the supplement form anymore. It's a cod liver oil that it's on Wellavate, which is like a practitioner grade, but I'll grab the name of it and I'll send it to you. I
Mm.
really like that one.
What?
But another I was going to say another great supplement for the brain is actually creatine. So I know it's a very popular supplement in the bodybuilding world, but it's also really great for your brain. It offers neuroprotective effects, and it can actually boost brain power. There's quite a few studies that different rats given creatine versus not having creatine, and even in human studies, it really can boost brain power, but it also can be a neuroprotector. So that's another great supplement.
Yeah, yeah, I'd read about that. In fact, even if I'm not training, I do tend to have it. How much would you say is a good amount for a person to have? And is it okay to have every day? Is there a minimum amount a person needs to have depending on body weight and a maximum amount? What would it depend on?
For creatine,
Yes.
so the studies have been using 5 grams a day. So I believe that's just the one I have at least. It's just that's the scooper. It's a quite small scooper, but just using the standard recommended dose a day.
Would that does it not matter what your body weight is? Is that for male and females and yeah, whatever, just for anyone?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the standard recommendation on the
Right.
supplement in and of itself. But yeah, I believe, and you might actually know this a little bit better than I do, is there a creatine recommendation like per pound of body weight for kind of like protein recommendation?
That I don't even know, to be honest. But people who do hold a bit more muscle mass, it's suggested that they do have a bit more than the recommended amount. So I don't know how that would be for the brain as well. I don't know whether it's like if your brain weighs a bit more. Um, but obviously,
Oh,
your body, your muscles will be using some as well. So I'd assume that you'd probably someone of a larger portion of probably a larger size will probably need more creatine, maybe. I'm
that could be. To be honest, I don't know the exact dosage, like based on exact body weights. I know that the studies have been based on the five a day.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say is a good did we cover any biohacks for the brain?
I
Uh,
don't think so.
okay. Yeah, what would you say are really good biohacks for the brain to optimize neurotransmitters and maybe neuroplasticity and just everything to have a super brain?
Yeah. So I think cold therapy is great because we talked about how it can help to repair the blood-brain barrier, but it can also help to improve blood flow over time. So that's a really big thing for the brain is we always just want to be focusing on what supports blood flow and what, harms blood flow. Let's do the things that support it and not do the things that harm blood flow. So cold therapy is great. If you can get into a cold tub, that's obviously best, but cryotherapy is another option that can really, get the blood going up to the brain. Um, Hyperbaric oxygen is one of the most proven treatments for brain health. So if anyone were to come in with, for instance, a traumatic brain injury, any sort of concussion, CTE, something like that, one of the first recommendations or prescriptions would be to go right in the hyperbaric chamber. It's incredibly healing for the brain. It offers the pressure. So, have you been in one before?
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
you
been
have
I've
it,
been in
LMS, right?
yes, LMS, also known as human. I did go
Oh,
to
human, yes.
yeah. My first experience was in a different one. Where was it? Somewhere in London. Somewhere in London, Kensington. I think it was Kensington. Do you know someone by the name of Tim Gray?
Yes, I do. Just on Instagram, but yeah.
Yeah, so he's the founder of the Health Optimization Summit. We got speaking on Instagram, and he told me that he had a facility in Kensington, and if I'd like to check it out, and I was like, yeah, why not? And my first time experience when I got into that little chamber was it felt like my ears were gonna, I don't know, like my head was gonna explode. I was like knocking on the glass, like, dude, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. So he released the pressure of something, and it was tolerable. What's happening there? Why is it? Why did it feel like like when you're in an airplane, but a bit more intense?
So the pressure is why you felt that way. Being in a hyperbaric chamber is almost like being about 15 to 16 meters under the water. So you have the pressure and then you have the oxygen. So yes, it takes some getting used to in terms of it feels like your ears are going to pop, right? Just like when you're taking off on an airplane. But the between the oxygen saturation and the pressure, it's just driving a ton of oxygen into every cell. So it's great for things like wound healing, but for the brain, it's been proven in some of the most about studies about 2 weeks ago are showing that it's one of the only therapies that can halt, as they say, Alzheimer's and start to restore memory. So if you think about that from a prevention standpoint, if you have access to do it every now and then, or there's even some bikes that you can, I believe the eWatt, which you can use at home, which mimics that oxygen saturation. It's of course not the same as hyperbaric, but it's a kind of more accessible option. That would be really incredible for preventing and cognitive decline because all brain health is so much about just blood flow. Let's boost blood flow, and blood flow in the brain when you're in a hyperbaric session is significantly increased. So I would say hyperbaric is a really cool one. If you have it around you, it's becoming more popular. But I also really like the V light. So we were chatting about some of the kind of tech that we have at home, from the brain tap to the V light, is really great because it actually has photobiomodulation that you can do directly intranasally. So that's going to help the mitochondria in the brain. It can boost brain blood flow. And then there's also a piece that you attach to the head, which has the modules on it, also emitting a light therapy that can actually enter through the brain. So that's another great biohack in my opinion. I also think that PEMF is really nice in terms of brain health and overall recovery, general health. So I use, PEMF mat. It depends on what PEMF you have. Do you have one that has a accessory for the head or the brain, but it can help boost blood
Um,
flow?
Not directly for the head. I have it's a mat, and then there's this thing called an applicator, which you can strap to your arm, strap it to your leg, or you could just, I don't know, like rest it against different parts of your body. I guess maybe you can rest it on your head. I know that the Gauss is supposed to be a lot more powerful through it. Um, yeah, it's supposed to be like a lot more. What sort of Gauss would you reckon is a good amount minimum for a PEMF device?
That's a good question because they kind of range in what their output is. So, if you want one that feels very aggressive, so I'm assuming when you lay on yours, you really, really feel it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great, but there's a kind of a spectrum, and I'm not a PEMF specialist, but the PEMF that I have at home, for instance, it has, I believe, 7 frequencies layered on top of each other, so it's just a coil. You actually really don't feel too much. So when it comes to some aspects like circulation, the higher the Gauss, the more impact, of course, you're going to have. So I have one at home that is more just therapeutic in terms of I don't have that big impact because it depends on what your nervous system is like too. You don't want to be overtaxing the nervous system with something that's that intense if you're already kind of burning, kind of experiencing some burnout or a lot of stress at work. You want to kind of take it more so on an easy level, but I don't know the exact range that of PMF.
What device do you use? What's the name of it?
It is called the Haleo, Haeleo.
H
Let
A
me make
L
sure.
E O. Okay, cool. Well, I
Do you
can't
see it?
remember.
It's like a little coil.
No, I'm just noting it down. I'm not
Oh yeah.
Googling it or anything, just noting it down.
Oh,
Um, what is mine called? Oh, man, I can't even remember. I can't even remember. Bio something. The mat is gosh. It's like I look at it all the time. I use it most days. I can't think of the name of it. It doesn't
well,
matter.
the Nanovi that you have is also great for brain health. So we talked a little bit about that when you were on my show, but
Mm.
reducing oxidative stress is really, really important. So I think that the Nanovi is a great, and it's about a 30-minute session. You said that you slept with yours on all night once, which I find very cool, but that's great for boosting brain health, and it's going right through the nostrils up into the brain. So anytime that we can reduce oxidative stress through either antioxidants or some type of device such as the Nanovi, I really like it.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be really good for protein folding because I understand that sometimes this process doesn't happen with the body for whatever reason, but yeah, it helps with that. But it also the vapor in which it gives, it's like a almost similar to structured water or something. Oh, I can't remember the detail. There's so much behind it. I actually interviewed one of the co-founder. Um, what's her name? Begins with R. I don't know if you've spoken to her before.
Rowena.
Yeah, Rowena. And I was like, wow, this thing is so fascinating. So I'm thinking, because it's such a premium device, that's the reason why I use it most days. I'm like, this is premium. I should be using it all the time. And it doesn't take so much
Hmm.
effort like when you're getting in the sauna, with the sauna, you have to be like ready to use it and stuff. But anyway, so cool. PMF, Nano V, the V Light, hyperbaric, cold therapy.
Sauna is great as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, sauna's up there too. If you happen to have a home sauna, again, it's all about boosting blood flow. So we know when you get a sauna, you're red, you're hot, you're sweating, and you're boosting the blood flow internally. So I do sauna maybe like 3 times a week, 3 to 4, just depending on what my workout schedule is. But I think sauna is another great way. But if we want to just go back to basics, walking is definitely a biohack, major boost for the brain. Proper sleep, proper nutrients. Those are kind of like the easy ones, the light in the morning to really set the circadian rhythm. Those are some, free or low cost biohacks.
Mm. And what's your thoughts on grounding?
I think it's very beneficial. Yeah, and again, if you can get outside and do your walk and just put your bare feet on the ground, we know that everything that we touch has, an electrical output. And being connected to the earth and having our skin directly connected to the earth is incredibly healing. It can be great for your HRV. It can definitely be very good for your mood. And I think nature therapy is just absolutely incredible and another free way to do it. And if you want to, I have like a little mat in my house too in the really cold winter months. If you don't want to go Wim Hof it and be standing in the snow, there's some earthing mats that you can purchase for your home too that
Mm.
mimic that same. Do you have one of those? I think you
I
said you did.
do. Yes, yes. I've got one next to my PEMF mat. Um, I was wondering. I was told that I know outside, if the floor is wet, and let's say you're stepping on the grass and the floor is wet, it's almost more conductive if you were to be on the grass or on the ground. Um, what's your thoughts on wetting up the mat when you're in the house? You think that's a
That's
bit wild?
interesting.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that actually.
Oh,
You
okay.
you wet your mat?
No, I don't. I was just
Yeah, I've.
thinking, should I?
Oh,
You know, I haven't done.
no, I think that the mats are good. I can see that with like actually the grass if it's a damp surface, but I think the mats are good to just be dry.
Right, right. Okay, cool. Any other biohacks? Did you say you use a Muse? I'm sure you mentioned that before on when I was on your podcast.
Yeah, the Muse it's a really great it's a really great device that you can measure your meditation. So I think one of the big barriers to entry for meditation is that people feel like they're doing it wrong or they're maybe not getting the amount of benefit that they want to right away. First of all, it's a practice that takes some time to really take hold in important brain regions like improving gray matter, as I explained before. In studies, meditators versus non meditators, the meditators all had significantly more gray matter. And as we age, not only does our blood flow to our brain diminish, but also the size of our brain and other factors like kind of as Dr. Amen says, as the size of your waist goes up, the size of your brain can actually go down. So there's a lot of factors in terms of keeping healthy metrics made. But sorry, tell me one. I just lost a little bit of my train of thought. What did you say?
Oh, so I was just talking about the Muse. Like, what's your thoughts
Oh,
on
the
the
muse.
Muse
Yeah.
and how it affects the brain? What's the benefits on it?
Oh yeah, so the Muse, it's a really great tracking tool. So it's really going to tell you, did you do well during your meditation, or how much of your meditation did you really kind of hit an optimal brain state? If you want to be in like a lower level brain state like alpha, but if your brain was stuck in high level, very focused and really kind of sporadic brain state like beta or gamma, then it will tell you a kind of a readout and an overview of how your meditation went. So I think it really encourages people to understand what it feels like when they hit a deep meditation. So if you're using the Muse, it's almost like neurofeedback. So if you're using the Muse and you see, okay, for 10 out of the 20 minutes, I was in a really deep meditative state, then that can help you improve later because you'll remember what it feels like.
Mm. Right. That's really interesting.
The
I actually
Happy is a really cool piece of tech.
okay.
The Happy.
I've heard about that.
So that again is it's playing on brainwaves. So throughout the day, we cycle through all different. There's about four different brainwave types: alpha, beta, gamma, theta. But it will play on that. So there's a happy setting that has it almost they say mimics alcohol, but it puts you into a relaxed state. So this is have you seen them? They're just little. They go around your neck. Have you seen the happy? Sometimes people wear them on their head.
I don't know. I don't think so. No, I've only heard
Oh
about.
yeah, so it's another cool little device that people definitely can use to improve their mood. So do you want to be more calm at night? Sometimes I use it. There's a deep sleep setting. I use it under my pillow every now and then, and it definitely has helped to increase my deep sleep. Or you can wear it in the morning for focus. There's like a caffeine kind of mimicking setting, so people can use that as well in terms of boosting their focus. But that's a cool at home biohacking piece of brain tech. There's also like the Apollo Neuro. There's so many cool little devices coming out. Like I said, the V Light, and you have one called Neuroscience, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it sort of primes the brain for things that you want to physically be more um, uh, what you want to improve on, like if like you're learning tennis or any kind of physical coordination type of thing, it kind of um, creates more connections in the brain so that you can learn it much quicker. Yeah, really interesting. It's a headset that you put on, and you have to spray these little parts that touch your head. For me, it's okay because obviously I shave my head, but for those who have hair, I do question, if it works the same for them. So it has to touch your scalp, and it sends these electrodes to the brain to help with neuroplasticity and that sort of thing. It's pretty cool. Um, yeah, that's interesting. The HAP-B. I want to have a look into that. What's the sort of price on that thing there?
I think it's 300. I know that they were having a Christmas sale the past week or so. I think it might just be wrapping up now.
Mm-hmm. But a general price is around $300. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And the Apollo Neuro, I have one of those. That's quite
And
interesting.
the brain tap too is a great device, kind of for this brain training. And I'm actually chatting with Dr. Porter this morning.
Oh, really? Really nice guy. He does lots
Yeah.
of meditation classes on a regular basis. Yeah, good guy. Good guy. You'd mentioned about something called the New Calm. I've heard about it. I think on Ben Greenfield's podcast like months ago, but it was something that I forgot to look into. What could you say about that?
Yeah, that one I don't have personally, but I've heard really great things about it. It's really good for putting you into almost a nap state or improving your deep sleep and your REM sleep. So there's so many gadgets out there, but it's definitely literally, it's going to help improve your nervous system, bring your brain states down to a more calm state, and then put you to bed, take a nap. Ben always says he uses it like right before he's going to take a nap and does a quick like 30-minute nap, but gets kind of the restorative brain benefits of sleeping for longer.
Right, sleeping for longer. I was just thinking maybe that could be the secret to getting the glymphatic kick in a short space of time.
Yeah, naps are definitely something that you can do, and sometimes they work really well for people. I'm not a big napper, but sometimes they work really well.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on psychedelics and the brain?
I think it's interesting. Of course, I don't really want to advise for psychedelics necessarily or against on this show, but I
Mm.
think it's a really interesting area of research. Same thing with almost like ketamine therapy for PTSD and different forms of depression. I'm interested to see where the science kind of takes us, but of course, very hesitant to promote, one way or the other right now.
Oh, right, right. Like just maybe what you've heard, because I know lots of people that microdose on stuff and, that I just heard some really good reviews. Oh man, let's say not talking from a professional point of view, but like what you've heard, could you say at all, or you'd prefer not to? Like
Well, what I
non-professional.
will say is,
Mm,
what I will say is that I think that there can be an interesting case for kind of, brain rewiring. So when it
mhm.
comes to thought patterns and the way that we think on a daily basis, most of our thoughts that we think today are the same as yesterday. And that's why it can be difficult for people to really change their mindset and make progress in that area. So I think that there's some interesting possibility with brain rewiring and changing the way that people think based on using these microdoses, potentially, though.
Right, right, right. What about actual hardcore drugs? What's happening with the brain there? Like when you've done all the brain scans and that sort of thing, what have you noticed typically?
Yeah, drugs are, of course, one of the most detrimental things to the brain. They're right up there with like alcohol, drugs, and of course, there's an entire spectrum. Are we talking about THC or are we talking about heroin? It's a very different scale, but even THC, which I believe has been quite glamorized in recent years. When we look at the brain scans, the THC brain scans are some of the worst in terms of blood flow, so significantly lowering the blood flow, which when it comes to overall brain health and longevity, we always want to do things that boost the blood flow. So, in my opinion, not using, of course, any drugs, but even THC is definitely recommended due to it reducing the blood flow.
Right, right. Okay. I hear so much things where people are like, yeah, yeah, it's makes me think I can write music and all this sort of stuff. And so it's just garbage. It's just not good whatsoever. Reduces blood
Yeah,
flow to the brain, but people say it helps them to
yeah.
think deeper and stuff. Like, what's going on there?
Well, I mean, it can boost creativity, sure, but when we're talking about the physical changes to the brain and in the brain structure, I mean, the scans don't lie. So I always just say don't shoot the messenger because when I put this on my social media, people are very upset. This and alcohol, I think I probably lose a bunch of friends during that time, but unfortunately, the brain scans just they don't lie and the blood flow is significantly compromised, so we don't want to do that.
Okay. And what's happening with heroin?
Well, I mean, yeah, to be honest, I don't know the exact changes. One quick second. So I have another call at 9.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Sorry.
right.
Yeah, yeah, so sorry. I was just looking at the clock.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, do
You know what? It's
you
okay. We can stop here. Look, Kayla, it's been incredible. Thank you so much for your time. That's all been phenomenal. Where can people find you? So you're on social media. What's your Instagram handle?
Yes, it's my name, which is Kayla Barnes, KaylaBarnes. And
Mhm.
then I have a bunch of articles, podcast links, and resources on my website at kaylabarnes.com.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your expertise, advice, and just golden nuggets to take away. I truly appreciate it. Everything we've discussed, I'll also message you in the meantime to get some details to put in the show notes. But thank you very much for your time. You have a blessed day, my friend.